And we are live for June 20th, 2020, with our exclusive Patreon live stream. Looking forward to talking about whatever you want to talk about today. I'll be on for hour and 15 minutes, taking your questions, seeing what happens. Um, yeah. All right, first up, joining in today is Majestic Demon. Good afternoon. How are you this afternoon, Sean? I'm good. Edited a video this morning, my Shrek ranking, posted it, went to the gym. A little bit of crazy at the Chandler household, but that's pretty normal when you have 3 kids. So, and you can't leave the house much. So, yeah, I'm mostly doing good. Already been pretty productive for the day. Well, looks like maybe it's just the two of us for now. Or this is running slow. Sometimes it runs slow. That can be frustrating. But, oh well. Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it looks like it's running slow. Because I can see on the other page that there's more stuff. So, Majestic Demon, I rewatched Inception this week. I definitely respect it a lot more after seeing it a second time. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, some of that stuff you said before, I didn't know how to respond to it, because if you said you didn't like it because it's just not your thing, I'd understand. But when you call it just boring and things like that, I was confused. Jackson, and did you like Black Klansman or The Five Bloods better? Black Klansman. I mean, I haven't watched Black Klansman in a while, but that one I had a better initial impression from. It's a much more consistent film that still has some of the same faults. I think Spike Lee does certain things. That's just part of what he has, this kind of in your face style with his messaging that I'll probably never be a big fan of. I think it'll always hold his films back because it's preaching rather than using story to communicate a message. And that's in both films. But Black Klansman, much more so, is a better contained story that's focused on what it's trying to do. It just goes into preacher mode a little bit too much for my taste. Whereas The Five Bloods, the whole first half of it kind of meanders a good bit, and then it finds its footing in the second half. But the whole, like, it's two different pacings, two different vibes. It's like hangout movie, and then it's heist thriller with commentary being the central theme in all of it. Rich Reeves, thoughts on Warner Brothers wanting to do a live action The Halloween Tree? I mean, I don't know what that is. I don't know what the Halloween Tree is, so I don't have any thoughts on Warner Brothers wanting to do that. Because I don't know what it is. Sorry. Bryce, hey Sean, have you seen American History X? Yes. If you have, what are your thoughts? To me, it's one of the most difficult films to watch and digest, but it's super important. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched it in 10, 15 years. I don't know when the last time I watched it was. I was never as taken with it as a lot of people were. I mean, it certainly has the jarring imagery. There are always certain things about it, though, that felt a little bit, I don't know, it didn't look cinematic, though. It looked like a TV movie to me. Yeah, of course, some great performances and important stuff to say about hate. But I've never been someone that was just obsessed with it the way some people were back in the day. Jesse Demon, I think the reason my ADD pulled me out of the film the first time was because I didn't understand it. Yeah, it's got a lot. It's got a lot going on. A lot of rules you have to understand to follow it. Richard Views. It's possible at the end of the month that theaters might reopen here in Virginia. Yeah, there's one theater open here in town where 3C, Chris Parker, is at in Dallas. Apparently, Cinemark's already reopened there because he's already gone back to movies. I'm assuming he's in Dallas when he's doing that. So I checked to see if they're open here, but they are not. So that's unfortunate. But I literally checked to see, like, hey, maybe tonight I'll go to the movies. Looks like that's a no. I'll have to wait until next month. Jackson, who was your favorite member of the Five Bloods? I don't know. I didn't watch the movie thinking who's my favorite of these people. I mean, Delroy Lindo is the standout of the film, of course. There's just no question. He is the lead, and so he's the one that when it comes to who's everyone talking about, rightfully so, who's the person that's given the most material to just shine, it's of course him. But he's a unhinged person. I don't know. I'd say he's my favorite member of the group, but I didn't watch the movie looking for a favorite. Andrew, currently rewatching The Office. I almost finished with season 7. Convince me why I should finish the show. I mean, I'm not the right person to ask. I've only rewatched. The only reason I've ever rewatched seasons 8 and 9 was to do my ranking of the seasons. That's the only time I ever rewatched them after they originally aired. And when I rewatched them, I considered not finishing watching it because I still hated so much about what they did in those 2 seasons. The finale, I think, is still quite good. So, I mean, I can't give you a reason not to skip from Steve Carell leaves the show and then just come back and watch the last 1 or 2 episodes. But I'm not the right person to ask you to convince you to watch seasons 8 and 9. I don't think they're very good. I think that they, in many ways, betray things that I love about the show. Comics Man, hey, I watched today's ranking on all the films you've seen in 2018. Okay, let me reread that. Hey, Sean, I watched your ranking of all the films you've seen in 2018. It's like 4 hours long. I enjoyed every minute of it. I misread that. I was like, I didn't talk about 2018 movies today. And I went, wait, I'm getting my grammar on this one swapped around. Yeah, those are a ton of fun to do. I keep notes all year long of what it is, and I keep adjusting it. There's many different versions. Sometimes I'll rewatch movies. Sometimes movies just don't sit well with me. But starting the first new release of the year, I start a list in Evernote, and it's number 1 on the list, and then I look at the next thing and just keep adjusting it all year long and going back and forth. And since I started doing the monthly rankings where I rank all the movies I saw that month, it's kind of helped me a little bit because it has like a monthly process by which I reevaluate the list and have to think through it. But those are a ton of fun in doing the live streams. And what's cool about this year is that I had huge issues every year because of my laptop. But I got a new laptop a month ago. So this laptop can actually do cool stuff and doesn't overheat and can do everything properly. And we've discovered some new streaming software. So, I can put graphics up on the screen and everything. So whenever we do the 2020 edition, which will be much shorter since there won't be nearly as many movies, it'll be a much cooler video. Bryce Bailey, what's your favorite Oliver Stone directed movie? Mine is Snowden. I wouldn't have one. I don't have one off the top of my head. I couldn't, I could give you answers I've seen. Like the answer that I would give would be JFK, because that's the one just by the nature of the stories a little bit fascinating to me, of conspiracy theories, courtroom drama, stuff like that. So by nature of what it is, that one is fascinating to me. But there's a lot of his movies I haven't seen. A lot of them I've only seen once. A lot of them I haven't seen in a long time. And so it's not a very definitive answer to say JFK. I've also, I read the book after I watched the movie. So there's just a bunch of interesting things about the history of it that sways me toward that's not Oliver Stone related. So yeah, I'd need to do to give a definitive answer. I'd want to have watched more of them more recently. Tony, currently rewatching How I Met Your Mother. Have you ever watched this? Have you ever watched Ranked the Seasons? I'll never finish the show. I've seen, I think, the first 4 seasons, and I've seen the last episode. I just have no interest in watching through the series because I think it ended so poorly and lost its way. And just in general, the amount to which I enjoy shows about 20-somethings hanging out, and one of them's the guy that sleeps around. I mean, it's the same formula that they use for all of these shows. It's just not. That's not stuff that I like to consume in mass. And so I like lost interest after 4 seasons, and then the finale happened. So I checked it out, and I was like, "Wow, they dropped the ball on this one." So I don't think I would ever rank the seasons, but like I appreciated a lot about this show and the creativity and the storytelling for what is kind of a pretty familiar formula for a sitcom. Jump Productions, hey, hope you're well. Have you seen the Before trilogy? If so, what's your thoughts on it? No. I think I don't. Yeah, I think at one time maybe my wife watched one or some of them, but I mean, there's never been anything about them that has drawn me to them. I know Rich Reviews asked me to rank them every month, but they're not, maybe there's something about them that someone could tell me, oh, this is the thing that would win you over, but they're just not Sean Chandler type movies. They're not, unless there's like, I'm severely misunderstanding what they are. There's just legitimately not something I'm by default drawn towards. Rich Reviews, one of my goals is to review and surpass 12 documentaries. So far, I have 10 documentaries. You will probably hit your goal then. Andrew, sorry, that was more of a joke. I just watched your Office seasons rankings, so your thoughts are fresh on my mind. Yeah, then I do not like those seasons, and the more I think about them, the less I like them. And even the more you hear background stories on how those seasons happened, they knew they screwed up. Like after they filmed and edited those episodes, they pretty clearly watched them and they went, especially with the Jim and Pam tension, and they went, oh no, and immediately told the writers, undo this now. Like, we have to fix this. Like, no. Just Seaman, 2 days ago, Toy Story 3 turned 10. How quickly time flies by. Yeah, stuff from 10 years ago isn't the stuff at all that bugs me. That's not that. On the one hand, it's like, wow, that was 10 years ago. On the other hand, because that's the window of time where I had kids, like I think, man, a lot did happen in there. Now I have these kids and I don't remember before I had kids. It's what I think 20 years ago. That's the stuff that's been freaking me out because I graduated from high school 20 years ago. Like right now, I guess, a week ago, 2 weeks ago was my 20th anniversary graduate from high school. And then my anniversary, college or high school reunion was supposed to be this summer and then delayed because of Corona and everything. But so all these movies that I remember coming out after I graduated high school are having their 20th anniversary this summer. And that's weird. And that's what it's just going to keep being every single week for the rest of my life, is movies having 20-year anniversaries, 30-year anniversaries that came out after I graduated high school, which is really that's weird to think about. Bryce Bailey, if you could take someone from Batman's Rogue Gallery and put them in Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery, vice versa, who would you choose and why? I wouldn't. I really don't. That sort of thing doesn't interest me. So people are like, oh, would you love to see a movie where the DC versus Marvel the movie? Not really. Like it's inherently fan fiction. So that's not. Of things I want to see, that's pretty low on the list. The idea of like, what if you could take Dr. Octopus and Batman is trying to stop him? It doesn't. That idea doesn't do anything for me. Or like, what if Spider-Man was battling the Joker? Like, none of that on any level like tickles my brain and makes me go, oh, what? I wonder what you could do with that. So that's just not my thing at all. Anything that gets too speculative, anything that just kind of goes into this realm of total what if zone, I don't have particularly strong opinions on it. I don't know. Yeah, it's sometimes people are like, hey, what ifs would you do for the What If show that they're doing for Disney Plus? Like, I don't have any. I don't. I'm interested in the show and seeing what other people do with it, but I don't. It just feels like, let's just take two ideas and mash them together. And in a certain sense, that's all I've ever done with my life, is mash ideas together, not come up with new stuff. But that doesn't interest me when it comes to stuff like that. And in developing it, when my brain, what would I want to do? I like the idea of playing within the rules. So what's everything we know about the Batman comics? What's a story that you could tell in a movie form that captures that? Movie Lover 999, have you seen The Hurt Locker? Actually, I haven't, unfortunately. I missed The Hurt Locker. Joe Productions, I really finished the MCU for the first time. I really enjoyed all of it because of your videos, so thank you for recommending such a good franchise. Very cool, very cool. That's not normally the franchise that people get introduced to because of my channel or that happens in that order. Normally, they're big fans of the MCU, and then they find my videos and fall in love with my channel because of the MCU connection. So it's always fun to see someone on the flip side of that. WWE, what's your favorite fish out of water film? I'll probably forget an obvious one that I should include in here, but the one that's coming to mind is Crocodile Dundee. But you know, that's just one that's coming to mind at the moment. I don't know that that's actually what I would long-term go with. I mean, in a certain sense, Back to the Future is a fish out of water comedy because it's 80s kid in the 50s and that he's the fish out of water. Doesn't know how to exist in that. Like, no one knows that he's the fish out of water, but he is. But yeah, Crocodile Dundee, if you don't know, it's about this journalist that hears about this guy named Crocodile Dundee in the outback of Australia and goes to like research him. So she lives out in the outback for a week with him and they have some adventures. And then she thinks, wouldn't it be cool if I brought him back to New York City? So then she takes this guy that's just lived out in the wilderness and takes him to New York City. And it's just fun, like just this fun, goofy movie with Paul Hogan, this larger-than-life character that's just perfect for that kind of movie. That he became like this big, gigantic sensation, is kind of this one-trick pony as this super-duper Australian guy, and then he had his string of movies for a few years there, and then hasn't done much for the last 25 years. But this is one that comes to mind. There, Edison, I'm trying to rewatch all the Nolan films at my dad's house since the TV in our room here has speakers. All I have left are The Dark Knight Rises, The Prestige, and Insomnia. I've got an Insomnia review coming in 2 days. Prestige coming in 2 weeks. But as I'm sure well, I am rewatching them as well. Andrew Arrington, when you're ranking a franchise or a larger list of 20-plus movies, how do you rank the films in the middle that have similar grade production quality currently watching and ranking? I mean, it gets really tough. Like there's certain, the ultimate example of this is my annual rankings where I'm looking at the last few years, about 100 movies, or say it's like 140 to 80 movies. So even if you go with the low number, 80 movies watched over 52 weeks. So some of them I watched a year ago. Some of them I watched a week ago. Some of them I watched yesterday. And you're trying to, and some of them I've rewatched. Like last year, I watched the Lego Movie 2 20 times because I had kids. Whereas other ones, I'd seen The Rise of Skywalker 3 times in the previous week before I did that video. It's just kind of all over the place as to how many times I'd seen everything, and you're trying to rank them. So, I start with my gut reaction. What did I review it? That's my initial version of the ranking. But as the year goes along, I shift it around quite a bit, and certain ones go down, certain ones go up. The monthly rankings really help me kind of think through, process it, and have to evaluate on a monthly basis. But I mean, you just start thinking through different criteria of like, okay, what are the conversations I've had about this movie since it came out? Okay, I think some people convinced me this one's better than I gave it credit for. Like they actually did win me over, or they convinced me it's worse. Or I go, if I'm going to a desert island, am I taking this one or this one? If they're both entertainment kind of films, certain movies like Schindler's List, that criteria doesn't really work. But if you're talking about 2 blockbusters, which one do I take the desert island if I only get to take one with me? Or I'll go, okay, I really enjoyed that one in the theater, but have I thought about it since then? That's the one I get myself in a lot of trouble with because because I like movies, and if you fall into like a certain thriller, action movie, crime, sci-fi, by default, I tend to be pretty kind to those movies. And so then letting myself sit on it a little bit, where do I land now that it's not just that experience, but like, have I even thought about that movie. No, it's just totally forgettable. So I just do a lot of that stuff. I try and just think through several different criteria, but it's like with the Marvel movies, I think it's because I do those annual ones that it legitimately, there's so many different things to factor into it. That makes it a lot easier when you're looking at only 20 Marvel movies. And 20 is still a lot. And you do have a bunch of these ones that I get B 8.5, B 7.5. And you just start kind of playing that. I mean, if you look at my Marvel rankings, they frequently shuffle a little bit. And I start thinking, did the newest movie help or hurt this movie? Okay. Now, if I sit on Spider-Man Far From Home, I had some frustrations, but did they get better or worse with time? They got worse. So I'm going to knock that one back even a little bit more. So there's a lot of stuff like that of you do it enough and you get used to having all these criteria. So there's a long answer to that one. Bryce Bailey, can you tease any possible upcoming How to Fix videos you're planning or thinking about? Not really. Unfortunately, no. I need to get back to them. I don't know. I feel like I whenever quarantine started, I did a really good deep dive and came up with a bunch of creative ideas, and then and figured out what really worked while we didn't have new movies to kind of keep my momentum going. And it's worked. The formula worked. But I feel like in its own way, I've turned into my own new version of the rut that I felt I was in before. And I'm too quickly moving away from riskier things or a little bit more interesting things. Even though I'm still keeping a Bollywood review and some. I'm not totally moving away from what I'm hoping to do with it, but I haven't done nearly as many of those as I want to. They're trickier to do and they take some time. Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, I think I could do one for Spider-Man 3. I think that that one's actually a lot easier than the Spider-Man or the Star Wars movies, the prequels, the rest of the prequels. Or at least it's easier to do than Attack the Clones. Attack the Clones, I have to do a total rewrite. And so that's what's kind of slowed me down of you get yourself in trouble when it's not improving something. It's like I'm proposing something totally different. Oh, well, I'm going way out on a ledge on this one. That's kind of what stopped that one from kind of moving forward a little bit. Yeah, Spider-Man 3 is one that I thought about. I don't have an idea for Dark World. I think Dark World's just so bland that I think it's more of just you needed a director in there that had some spark. But on the plot line, you needed just different villain, but I don't have a proposal for how you make that particular villain better because I'm not familiar with the comic version. So I don't have something better for you, unfortunately. Andrew, of the Bond films or the Colonel at blog, and there's several that are similar in quality and rank. Currently watching and ranking all of the Bond films on the Colonel app blog, and there's several that are similar in quality and rank. Okay, so it took me a second to that was a continuation. Yeah, I think that's what those ones get real tricky if you're. I think a lot of it. I think that's a different problem. Well, it would apply. For me, I have that same problem because I'm not as familiar with the Bond movies as I am with the Marvel movies. Marvel is my niche. Bond is, I've really enjoyed a third of them for my lifetime. And then I've never been like Roger Moore era. That's never been my thing. So I haven't watched those as much. Some of the Pierce Brosnan ones I'm never really into. I haven't been a person that rewatched the Connery ones a ton. I've just watched them like once every decade for the last several decades. So I've seen them 4 or 5 times. So I don't have a deep knowledge of them and the deep reverence to notice nuance and things like that. So I'm having a similar. I'm worried about my ranking on that one for that same reason of like, how do I do this? I feel like with something like Marvel, though, I know them so well. I've seen them so many times in a narrow window of time that and I'm in the conversation so much, and I've done all these videos about final battles and the villains. I've thought about it from so many angles that I see differences to be able to pick where one goes over the other. It's that level of new specificity, it gets tricky if you don't have a deep knowledge of the material when they're that similar. Like, for me, I'm pretty nervous about when I'm trying to rank 25 Bond films and deciding which one's 12 and which one's 13. And I'm trying to take a ton of notes as I rewatch them, but yeah. Rich review. So how did you celebrate Juneteenth? I didn't celebrate Juneteenth. I don't, did you just celebrate Juneteenth? I did. Yeah, I did. That doesn't strike me as like hey, let's banner and shoot fireworks. Let's throw a celebration. That's not how I've perceived of Juneteenth being treated in the past. So I didn't celebrate Juneteenth. Jail Productions, have you seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine? What do you think about it? No, I've never seen a single episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, actually. Not one. Also, what are your thoughts on Cobra Kai moving to a new streaming platform? Yeah, probably for the best. YouTube was never a very good platform for originals, and to my knowledge, Cobra Kai is the only thing that's kind of catched a wave of popular culture. I think that's the only thing they've had that's been buzzworthy. And I think they picked up on that. Then they went, okay, we have one thing that's worth money and everything else is kind of a loser for us. So we should probably just shut this down and we can sell it off to Netflix, who can probably do something even better with it. They'll have more budget, more eyes will see it elsewhere. So I think it's a win for everybody, probably. Like, there's kind of one victory for YouTube's original stuff. So I'm cool with it. I'm just disappointed because I'm excited for season 3 because I can do a ranking. The way I've played out, I haven't done any Cobra Kai videos, I don't think. And I've really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to doing content on it. Bryce Bailey, are there any movies that you think could work best as an anthology franchise like Mad Max instead of explicitly connected sequels? I mean, Indiana Jones is that. James Bond has been that. I think there's a lot more potential to do kind of these adventurer type stories like that. I think someone asked me a question down the line, like a National Treasure. I think inherently that has this anthology, not explicitly a sequel vibe of this. I think it's just the adventure type genre. I think lends itself to that, of these people that globetrot and help people. I think there's just kind of designed that way. You don't need, because this happened in 2 and 3, this happens. No, you just have a character that goes on adventures and you see them in all these different places and you have a certain tone, a pacing to them. And so you could easily do spinoffs with them. And that's where you kind of, like with Furiosa, people are like, oh, I want to do a Furiosa movie. You go, okay, that makes sense. They came up with a strong character and we enjoy this world. And so it doesn't feel like, that's a cheap spinoff. Like, no, that makes a lot of sense. But I mean, I think any of these kind of adventure ones lend themselves pretty well to that. David Patterson, I get why you don't like the fight scenes in The Dark Knight Rises, but I don't see what's wrong with the fights in The Dark Knight. I mean, I haven't directly watched it in I don't know, a couple years. I don't know, a year. I haven't watched The Dark Knight in a little bit to be able to pinpoint exact moments. Rewatching Batman Begins a week ago, 5 days ago, I know they're bad in that. They're shot in a way to where it's like camera looking at for half a second at a crowd of people with arms wailing like this. Then it cuts to a different angle, and you don't even have a good feeling of the positioning. There's a lot of things like that. And some of it, I think, is designed to kind of capture this idea of Batman as working in the shadows. And when it's doing that, that's time. I'm not complaining about that. But other times it's like he's in a lit space with a crowd of guys that he's fighting. And you're just seeing hands fly up and a body go backwards. And it's just, you can't really make out what's happening. I think, if you just immediately stop and compare any fight in The Dark Knight to the warehouse scene in Batman v Superman, I think you can pretty well see what the disconnect between or watch any fight in the show Daredevil, you pretty quickly see the disconnect between my issue here. That like they're just not. There's nothing in any of Nolan's Batman movies that you would call like, man, that was awesome fight choreography right there. Some of them are decent fight choreography. Some of them are shot okay, but there's nothing that you go, that was an awesome fight scene. Like that, I would have to see an argument for that because I don't know of anyone that's made that argument that they did really cool fights in those movies. That is not the reason that people celebrate them. So I would have to see an argument for it, but there is just a lot of dull, like arm swinging, and you can watch the special features on those movies where they use the KC fighting method, and you see the demo stuff with the stuntmen doing things. You go, that looks pretty cool, but that is not what you put in the movie. And then you have Nolan criticizing a lot of the late '90s, early zeros fight choreography in films for being heavily influenced by Asian cinema and looking a little bit too dance-like. I'm tracking with you. That's not a bad argument. I know what he's saying, why he doesn't want to do that. And so then a direct correlation, say Daredevil, that has some of that. I can see what he's talking about. But you look at like some of those hallway fight scenes in Daredevil, it's a single take. You can see everything happening. It's not dance-like. It's a brawl. It's brutal, and it's very cool looking. And I don't think you have anything comparable to that in the $200 million Dark Knight. Comics Man, have you seen Fantastic Planet from 1973? It's a very odd one. I'm not sure. I've seen some of those. I'm not sure. I don't know. I've seen a lot of things like that with words like that in the title from that time period. I don't know if I've seen that specific one, though. Rich Reviews. A month ago, I graduated from college. A decade ago, I loved college. I despised K through 12. I was a big fan of college. K through 12, I just didn't have thought. I didn't have strong opinions on it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It just was. Are you going to see Tenet theaters? A couple days ago, I was ready to go, but now I'm on the fence. Oh, absolutely. I'll find a way. I think even built into it, where even there's some reasonable fears on people's parts, and then there's a flip side to it. I think if there's only 2 movies in the theater, that means Tenet's going to be on 4 screens. It's going to be on 6 screens. It's going to be on so many screens that even it's not like they're all going to be packed out. So they could limit capacity to 25%, but it's on 4 times as many screens as they sell as many tickets. And that's assuming as many people go out there. So even if you're afraid, just pick a weird time of day to go at 10 o'clock at night, and you can avoid the crowd. So I'm not, I'm not in a hot spot, death prone area or anything like that. So I'm not, in generally speaking, afraid. And then I just think there's a lot of ways in which, doesn't seem like a terrible idea, but yeah, absolutely. Joe Perkins says, I don't know if it's your thing, but would you ever rank the Call of Duty games? No. Stop. I mean, here's the thing, like when it comes to anything like that, you just have to think. To rank the Call of Duty games, I have to play through all the Call of Duty games, or at least dedicate a significant amount of time to them to get a very good vibe for the single-player campaign as well as the multiplayer, and then zombies or whatever things are on there to be able to do a real ranking. So a new Call of Duty game comes out every year. So to dedicate even a small amount of time, let's say I get 5 hours to each game. That's 50 hours for the last decade's worth of Call of Duty games just to do one video. 50 hours. How many movies I can watch in 50 hours? 25. How many rankings can I do watching 25 movies? Quite a few. And that's always going to be the barrier. That I can't. And it took me 3 months to play through the Uncharted games while we're in quarantine. It took me 3 months to play through 5 games while I can't go to the movies. I can't leave my house. So, I mean, that's always going to be the barrier to I'm not a gaming channel. I'm not a heavy duty gamer, and I do not rank things based off memories from 10 years ago. Like, oh yeah, I played Modern Warfare a whole lot back in 2008 and 2009. Therefore, I can just, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have to replay the game. So it's just that's always will be the problem. Majestic Demon, absolutely agree with your ranking of the Trek films. 3 had too much comedy and nothing interesting about it. 4 was more serious and more fun, but didn't do well with the story. Yeah, I don't have any. Yeah, my list is my list. I don't have any additional thoughts on it. Since I've only watched through it once to be able to go into detail. Bryce Braley, do you have a Michael Mann? Do you have a favorite Michael Mann film? Mine is probably Collateral. No, that's another one where I haven't watched enough of his movies recently enough to give a definitive answer on that. Like, I've seen a good number of his films over the years, but that's not the same thing as being able to give a definitive favorite. Like, I don't sit around with lists of favorites on most things. When I do favorites list, which I obviously do a lot of those, I have to sit there and really think about it. And I go and I look at my list over here. I post a poll and I get a bunch of people's opinions to try and balance it out. But it's very difficult for me to do favorites list. I just do not. I like variety and diversity. So I don't actually like picking favorites. Landon, how updated is your Letterboxd list? Not very. Let me see where it is at. Those are people I don't like Letterboxd. I don't like the interface. I don't like how many times I have to click on things to post things. I really don't like that people, if I use it too much, then people will start telling me how to use it. And they're like, you should actually do this. And that does not go well with me because I already don't enjoy using it. So having someone like talk to me like that, I'm like, not cool. So my list says I've watched 158 movies in this year. My Evernote says I've watched 233. So it's a little bit behind that I need to update. It says probably 2 months behind or a month behind, something like that. So, whoops. Rich Reviews. How is Texas going to bring back colleges in the fall? UVA is planning on doing a combination of in-person classes and online, and large classes will be a mix of both. I have no clue. I have no idea because I'm not in college, and so I don't. It's not a question that I have an answer to. Andrew Arrington, I went ting shopping for an engagement ring today. Ring shopping for an engagement ring today. How did the legend Sean Chandler propose? So one of the prettiest sites in while I tell this story, I'm going to look something up real quick for you. So one of the prettiest sites in Austin is called I'm blanking. I'm not doing well. So when you talk too long, what's the prettiest view in Austin? Best view in Austin. Mount Bonnell. Mount Bonnell is what it's called. Actually, I got it. I remembered it just in time. It's not even listed on all these lists. Huh. Mount. Oh no. Yeah. So one of the prettiest sites in Austin is Mount Bonnell. It's just kind of this hill that you go into the hill part of Austin over kind of this very pretty lake that has a pretty bridge in the background. And it's in like a real nice part of like swanky part of town, super expensive houses. And you just drive through and there just happens to be this hill you can walk up and take pictures, read a book, whatever you want to do, you can do it right on that hill. So went on a date night with wife and went out for dinner, left a gigantic tip, and all right, found it. Okay, you'll get a visual in just a second. That is a very low res visual. So then took her from there out to Mount Bonnell to watch the sunset. Got to the top and I was trying to figure out how do I like create like a cool moment right now that's not just pull out the ring, but get like set the stage with flowers and everything. And I couldn't think of a way to do it. And so I ended up like complaining about my shoes, and I demanded that Jennifer go and get me good shoes. And she's like, "Are you kidding?" I was like, "I'm not kidding. Go get me shoes," because wanted to set a nice romantic mode by screaming at her. And so she turns around to leave to walk away, and I put like roses out and like create this little path around the corner where she would have to walk with the other shoes, and we're on this edge, and I'm afraid of ledges. I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm afraid of edges. And so we're on this edge. There we go. You can kind of see what it looks like right there. So we're on this edge, and with all these rich people houses underneath us, I'm afraid of freaking out about falling off and throwing roses everywhere. And then I hear her coming around the corner, get on one knee. She walks around the corner, and I've got my ring there and for her. And yeah, so then she said yes. So there's the story. It involved me yelling at her, getting freaked out by being on a ledge, and being in this location right here. This is one of our engagement pictures from about 6 months later, 4 months later, 3 months later, something like this, but from right around the same time period. Let me see. I got one more of these engagement pictures. This one's not as good because it's, well, I don't know. It's a better picture, but it doesn't capture as well. So there you go. Ta-da! Engagement stories. Ooh, where was that? Okay. David Patterson, what is your favorite Brad Bird movie? It's difficult for me, but if I had a gun to my head, I'd say The Iron Giant. I'd go Ghost Protocol. If I was going to take one to an island with me, I would take Ghost Protocol with me. And since the question is favorite, that's the one that would be my favorite, is his Mission Impossible movie that he did. Yeah. Would you rather see a Disney National Treasure 3 or a National Treasure Disney Plus show? I would need to see the pitch for what National Treasure the TV show is and be convinced that that's a better idea than a movie. In general, I'm probably, because I know what National Treasure 3 the movie is, and you get Mr. Cage and everything. So almost certainly I would prefer a movie over a TV show, but GL Productions, who's your favorite Avenger? I like Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and Thor the most. I have a MCU heroes ranking, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but my heroes ranking has, I've got the heroes, villains, final battles, you name it. I've ranked it with the MCU, so I've got a video that elaborates on all of that. WWE Anime, have you watched Mr. Bean series and movies? Yeah, I've seen a good bit of Mr. Bean. I don't, I couldn't say I don't know how many episodes I've seen and which movies I've seen. There's like a big release in like 98 or something like that of a Mr. Bean movie here in the colonies. And I don't know if that was how many more they've released, but I remember really enjoying that one. I think it involved the Mona Lisa getting destroyed or something like that. So yeah, I've enjoyed some Mr. Bean. David Patterson, I've seen 217 movies this year. I've seen 11 2020 releases. Yeah, it's not a big year for releases. Rich Reviews, will you be watching the Fugitive series on Quibi? I seriously doubt it, since it's on Quibi, and there's not much point in watching anything on Quibi. If it was on something else, I might be interested in it, but watching like 15-minute TV on my phone and like can turn it like this or whatever they think is the benefit there. I don't know. It just doesn't. Let me see who's the details on this new one. The Fugitive Quibi. Yeah, that's it. This one's, I guess, I don't even. Why would they not have this one at premiere on their service? Is even baffling in and of itself. I guess it's supposed to debut this month. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe this will be the thing that gets me to check it out. But having to watch something on my phone, it just seems like an awful. And all the stuff about bite-sized pieces. But if they announced that this was going to be on normal TV, a fugitive show with Boyd Holbrook and Kiefer Sutherland, that sounds incredible. That's like right up my alley. but and then tying in all the social media stuff, all this sounds pretty good to me, but that it's on this failing Quibi, I don't know, man. That it's tough to be interested in that, but at the same time, Boyd and Mr. Sutherland. Comics Man, thoughts on Prison Break? I've never seen it. I've seen 1 or 2 episodes because I'd heard one of the shows so many people talked about, so I watched a couple of things. Majestic Demon, do you think it was out of character for the Joker to make the people of Gotham decide which boat to blow up when he was blowing up hospitals and stuff like that during the film? No, not if he's trying to make a point. I mean, it's not like his objective wasn't to not blow people up. His objective was to put the character Batman to the test. The whole thing was to make a point about everyone's corruptible. And so, I mean, that he blew up a hospital doesn't in any way mean that he wouldn't test someone at a later time. Movie Lover 999, what are some of your favorite trilogies? I did a video on my favorite trilogies, I don't know, 2-3 months ago. Very recently, I have a video on that. So you can just check that one out, and that'll have probably 10 on there, and then I probably have 10 more here on Patreon. Jail Productions, favorite of the American Pie movies? I think the second one. I haven't watched them in a long time. Raunchy, rated R sex comedies involving underage kids is not really something that I naturally gravitate towards a whole lot and never really have. I think the second one, just a few more laughs for me, a little bit more to it that amused me, if I recall correctly. Ben Abraham, what movie has messed with your mind the most or made you think the most? I don't know. I don't have one that immediately comes to mind. And then some of that's probably because I've been talking for 49 minutes straight, and so sometimes it's difficult for me to out of thin air remember through every movie I've ever seen that made me think about stuff. So not sure. I don't have a good answer for him. What did you think of Defending Jacob? I liked it, but sometimes it got too dark and the finale was disappointing. I really liked it until the end, and I thought that they really dropped the ball. I mean, they just went totally off the rails with the last episode. The last episode felt to me like they took the whole, like an inferior second season's worth of ideas and crammed all of them into one episode. They're like, oh, we got to keep going. So then this happens while they were in this place, and then this person did this, as if they're just trying to keep on dragging it out and have one more twist and one more complication and one more false hope, and never actually gives you proper resolution. Never really properly makes you go, okay, that was satisfying. You just perpetually feel like, oh, you guys, you're really good at the bag of tricks of keeping me intrigued and making me go, oh, what about this? What about this? Oh, could it be this? Oh, how are they going to? But you're not good at landing the plane. So you took off, you kept the flight, and then as you're coming down, you just crashed straight into the airport. David Patterson, I watched the original 1933 Invisible Man. I still loved it, but I had issues with it. It's very different from the new version. Yeah, I would imagine it's very, very, very different. I don't remember if I watched it back. I watched a lot of those back in the 90s, but it's been a long time. Andrew, have you seen Buried? No, I have not. Rich Reviews, would you ever do your own Mystery Science Theater 3000 show? I don't think so. It's like a type of humor that I don't fully resonate with as much anymore. Cracking jokes at something like that that's not the thing that would interest me if I were to want to do a comedy show or something like that, or a commentary show. It just wouldn't be that kind of thing. Majestic Demon, following up with what I was saying about Inception, I think I should have rewatched the first Mission Possible to see if I have a change of heart about that one too. It's possible. That one is a slower paced film, so I understand. I understand where you'd be coming from on that one a little bit more than Inception. David Patterson, I already have a rough draft of my list of my most anticipated of 2021 movies. They were supposed to come out this year. And well, by the time you get to that final version of it, we'll see how many more get added to that list. Rich Reviews, have you ever been to a Six Flags park? Oh, yeah, tons of times. I've been to actually I haven't been to that many Six Flags, but there's one in San Antonio and then there's one in Dallas. And so then I've been to the one in San Antonio a couple of times and I've been to the one in Dallas a whole bunch of times. So yeah. Six Flags. There actually were Six Flags over Texas, so it's not just a brand here, it's a true statement in Texas. Majestic Damien, I feel like I'm making an obvious question. Do you think that an MCU movie will be the first movie to gross $3 billion? No, I don't. No. I mean, if Endgame didn't do it, there's no reason to think that they would have something else that would. Endgame got, how close did it get? Yeah, I got 2.798 billion, but I don't think there's nothing. There's no obvious answer. There's no one to say that. Oh, the obvious one that's going to get to 3 billion is nobody knows because there's such anomalies. There's such a movie to make that much money is a freak occurrence because no one's ever done it before. Every movie that's ever been released, no one has ever done that. So anyone that thinks that they have a good guess as to which movie will do that is just wrong. Someone might be able to guess what it would be, but I have no clue, and neither does anyone else. You never could have guessed that Avatar was going to make as much money as it did. No one would have guessed that because no movie had ever made close to that amount of money, let alone a standalone film. Avengers Endgame is like the one movie that people were predicting could beat Avatar, and it did by just a little bit. But even in the case of that one, they just happened to have this insane hot streak with the MCU where they just had really high quality films that people really resonated with for a decade straight, which once again, you could not predict in advance. And so when they were making their Marvel plans, nobody would have guessed when Avengers 1 came out that Avengers 4 would make that much money. No one would have guessed that because it's twice what the first one did, and the first one already made a ton of money. So I think that's where it's just, I have no clue what will be the first movie to make $3 billion. Neither does anybody else. Landon Peterson, what did you think of Enemy? I thought it was one of the most thought-provoking movies of all time. I have not seen it. David Bredesen, I'm considering getting myself a Polaroid camera, so if I see something interesting that I can make a story out of, I take notes on the picture and pin it to my wall. You can't pin a phone to the wall, but you can print pictures that come from a phone. So, but you are correct. If you're wanting something really tangible to do something like that, that's what I back when I worked with teenagers, that one of the things I did in our space was I printed pictures, and they weren't taken with a Polaroid camera. They were taken with just an app. But then I used a filter. I actually used an app to make them look like Polaroid pictures, and then you grab a Sharpie and then you write the story on them. So I did something very similar to what you're describing, and so it has it's a really nice look to it. Yeah, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's a nice look. WWE Anime, what Blu-ray DVD movies that you haven't get? What Blu-ray movies that you haven't get? I'm not sure what you're asking, so I'm not sure how to respond. If you're asking like what movies do I want that I don't have, I don't really think that way for the most part about movies. Like I don't. I'm also kind of like at a phase of life to where, because movies are my living, there aren't a lot of movies that it's like, I just wish I had this, but I just haven't been able to get it yet. That's like not really a thing. That's not really the way it plays out for me. Or, yeah, so I don't think I have a good answer for him. Ben, have you seen Inbetweeners, the UK, or Father Ted? No, I have not seen either one of those. I haven't seen a lot of British television. I mean, I've seen things here and there, and the British Office, but I haven't seen much British television. Mikro Prut Den Dansky, Have you watched the Palm Springs trailer? No, I have not. I'm not actually sure what that is. Matthew K. Loving Community, currently on season 3. I would love to see a character and season ranking when you finish. I mean, that's the plan. I don't know. I'll the best I can. I plan to do something like that. I don't know if I'll do characters. I might, just because I know there'll be interest in, I should have done a Parks and Rec one immediately, and I didn't because of the timing of all of it. But in retrospect, that would have made for a better long-term decision if I'd done that. But character rankings are really tough, and the comment sections are just mean on them. So there's a lot of things that seem like they should be fun, but they're just the real mean, toxic comment sections, unfortunately. So that stops me from doing some stuff that probably otherwise would be pretty cool. Andrew, life goals. I feel accomplished when I can get Sean to give elaborate and long answers. Would you rather rank the Illumination or Dreamworld films? I mean, I have ranked the Illumination films. I have a ranking of the Illumination films. So to say that I've done that one and I haven't done DreamWorks, by definition, kind of means I prefer to do that. But there's there's almost 4 times as many DreamWorks movies as there are Illumination films. So it's a lot more complicated than just saying, hey, would you rather do this or this? Well, one of these requires 2-3 months of only watching movies from this one studio. One of these requires 2 weeks of only watching movies from this one studio. So one of them is much easier to do than the other, hence why I've done that one and I haven't done the other. Rich Reviews, what would you rather see a reboot to? The Crow, Darkman, or Spawn? The Crow is aged pretty well. So I don't think it doesn't need a reboot as much. And they've tried to do sequels and TV shows and stuff, and they never captured the magic. So I think that one sits the best as is. Darkman is probably the least well-known of those properties because it's like a Sam Raimi original type thing. And then Spawn, of course, is a famous comic book character that doesn't feel like we've gotten the definitive movie version. So I think Spawn is the one that I would think that they would do something with, that there'd be room to do things. Richard, any thoughts on the split of Brian Austin Green and Megan Fox? No, I don't get into gossip about other people's relationships. That's not, I don't know them. I don't follow them. So that's not, I have no reason to have an opinion on their relationship. Comics Man, have you seen Stuart Little movies and what do you think about them? I mean, I might have at some point in time. I don't. They're not something I would have any interesting thoughts on, though. That's not like, it's like kids' movies that came out when I was 18, so they might have been on in the background when I was babysitting my cousin or nephews or something like that. But that's not something that I would be heavily invested in. David Bennis, I watched Interstellar last night. I love it, but the middle section isn't focused enough, in my opinion. I haven't watched a little bit, so I don't have I will very soon, but I can't say that I have a strong enough, don't have a clear enough, recent enough memory to be able to know exactly what you're referring to on that. My hair is getting too long, so to avoid getting in my eyes, I have to look like Michael Corleone from the first 2 Godfather movies. Fun times. David Patterson, I want a Polaroid because I don't have a color printer. That is one solution to that problem. I don't have a color printer either, but it's anyway, there's other solutions. There's many solutions on the table that you can do in this situation. I do not have a color printer. There's a very cheap option for me to print an enormous number of pictures. Thoughts on your favorite show, The Bachelor, getting an African American for the next go round? I like. I mean, my understanding, I think it was probably understanding this is the first time that they've had a black bachelor on the show. I think that might be what I've heard. I don't know because I've never seen a single episode of it. I think that's the stuff that's very. I'm not one to like wave flag and scream about systemic racism. I'm not by default someone that does that, but you see something like that and you go, been on the air for 20 years or whatever, 40 seasons, 30 seasons. That's weird. That's freaking weird. And clearly, something's up. And I think that's I don't know. That's the things that make me not take Hollywood very seriously whenever they start to get political and want to lecture me, and when celebrities want to tell me all sorts of their opinions on stuff as if they're experts and have skin in the game. But then you see stuff like that and you go, Hollywood, you are so far behind where the majority of people are at. As much as you talk a big game, you are so far behind and much more interested in your own careers and making money than any of these things you claim that are your actual value sets. But I am only interested in what you're talking about in so much as my thoughts on Hollywood in general and their blatant hypocrisy. I'm not interested in the show The Bachelor at all. Matthew K, do you enjoy swimming or running? Swimming is my favorite way to exercise. I mean, I enjoy going to the pool. Like I enjoy going to the pool all the time. Just being in water and splashing around, taking the kids and everything. So I enjoy going to the pool. I don't go to the pool for exercise really. I wouldn't call it that. Back in February, before quarantine, I was doing a lot of jogging just because I was trying to do a much better job with cardio. I hadn't done cardio in a long time. And then with quarantine, kind of locked myself in my house for a month. And then since May 1st, I've been doing stuff with my wife at home with kind of these exercise video things. So I haven't done any jogging really since quarantine, but doing different cardio. But I enjoy going to the pool a lot. Oops. Andrew, looking forward to your YouTube class. Any updates on when it will be available? No, not really. And the one hand, it's very much something I'm actively working on. Even like, when I'm deciding what videos I'm going to do next week, I'm thinking, okay, do I need to cut 2 videos for next week so I have 2 days to write the course? But then there's some thoughts of like, okay, trying to figure out where I want to film it, what that's going to be like. But on it, very much it's like, I mean, it's not just like a couple of videos I'm going to post on YouTube. Like it's a course that'll cost money. It's like a legit course that I'm trying to add a ton of value. Something that it's intended for people that want to take this seriously. It's not just like, oh yeah, let me hear Sean's thoughts a little bit. Like it's, if you want to learn how to grow a YouTube channel, I'm going to dive into it and tell you what I did and the specifics and like put graphics on the screen of like, here is exactly how I discover what videos on my channel do and don't work. I look at this and I looked at this. You want to know exactly how I discovered where my template for my video came from? I looked at this page, right? And it's going to be all of that stuff, but I don't have a timeline per se. I'll say this, like I've already, if the software I'm going to use to host it, Kajabi, I've been paying a good bit of money for the last couple of months. And so there's a time frame on it because I'm investing too much money into it to not have it up and not have it be an income, something that generates some income. This is nothing definitive, but August 1st, August 15th, something like that, maybe. Tough to say. I would love it if it was August 1st. If like I got it written in the next 2 weeks, filmed it the week after that, and then promoted it for about 2 or 3 weeks on my channel and did some stuff to tease it pre-marketing, and then August 1st-ish put it out, that would be a big win for me. That would be good. WWE, have you ever watched any of the Pink Panther films? So I've seen the 2 Steve Martin ones. And then I've seen, and back in the day, I watched some of the classic ones, but I haven't watched a ton of Pink Panther films. Majestic Demon, I'm finally getting my haircut tomorrow. Finally can stop looking like Shane Dawson. Andrew Paxton, hey Sean, it's my first time joining the Patreon live stream. I just watched Rocky for the first time. I don't think I want to see all 7 movies. What are the essential movies in the Rocky series? I don't it's a tough question to answer because when your starting point is, I don't think I want to watch all of them Well, I don't know what you do want to watch in the franchise. So, I mean, you can't watch 3 if you haven't watched 2. You can't watch 4 if you haven't watched 3. You can skip 5 entirely. I think 6 is really good. Creed is really good. But 5 is the 5 and I guess 5 and 6 are the 2 that you could kind of skip. I think 6 is one of the really good ones. 5 is the worst. But I mean, if you're saying, "Oh, I don't want to watch all of them," I can't really give you a recommendation because your starting point is, I didn't really like this, but what do I need to watch? So I by default can't. That's a very it's an odd question to kind of ask because I would not recommend that you just like, oh, just watch this one. I wouldn't recommend that. Adam Grunther, are there any superhero shows that you've recently gotten into? That I've recently gotten into? No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, there's all the ones that I cover on my channel, but I didn't get into those recently. And so for me to get into them recently, I'd have to start watching them recently, and I haven't started watching any superhero shows recently, so I can't think of an example of that. David Edison, I get how you think Memento is a bit of a one-trick pony, but it's a 10 out of 10 on entertainment for me every single time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I couldn't say that. I know that's definitely not my experience with it. Watching it now is definitely not as mind-blowing, and each individual scene isn't nearly as engaging as it was when I watched it 20 years ago. Keep in mind, I've been watching the movie Memento for 20 years. So it's a very different experience if you've been watching something for 20 years, a movie like that. So that'd be also be my context. I saw it in the theater in the year 2000. All righty. Looks like those are our questions for today. I'll be back next Saturday, and we can talk more and answer more questions and cool times and keep talking movies too much. Thank you for your support.